why are you looking at me like you don't like me, like you hate me, like you want to fight me? I'm just trying to schedule the week. And, you just had to take a deep breath and you're like, I don't know. I don't know. I was like, do you need a break? And you said yes. And so we took a break. And so that's a pro tip right there. Obviously, things weren't going well. It's getting defensive back and forth. You're getting angry with me. And sometimes when that happens, taking a break is a damn good idea. Okay, so today we're talking about conflict resolution. And I want to tell a story of a conflict that we had. So this was right before we were about to buy the boat. So we bought a tiny plastic cheap boat that's $500 that will fit all of the whole family in it so that we can go fishing. And we love it, and it was a good decision. But right before that, we weren't sure if we wanted to keep doing that because, I mean, even $500 is still $500, and we didn't quite have all of it. Or did we want to keep using the rafts to go fishing? And so we had bought $50 raft that is huge, and we would get on that and then have the girls following us in other little tiny rafts, and we would fish off of the rafts, and that was awesome, and we enjoyed that. Except for that occasionally someone would end up, of course, hooking the raft, and we'd have to,
Patch it.
patch it or put a finger in the hole and paddle to shore quickly before it sank. And the most recent time that we did that in the raft, I hooked it. I hooked it ugly. And so, yeah, we had to put a finger in the hole and get the heck out of there before we all sank. I mean, we have life jackets on though, so nobody's going to get hurt or anything. But we were discussing that, and then there was an argument over the boats versus the rafts and that kind of thing. I don't know if you remember this, but we were sitting in the bedroom on our computers, and you were playing Northgard, which is what you're usually doing. That's what you were just doing right now, which is a
I do a lot
PC.
of things.
It's a strategy video game. Okay, okay,
Right.
right, right, right. And I don't remember, I was working on something, and I said, "Hey, it's time for Levy Conference." And so for the uninitiated, Levy Conference, that's just our word, just for our weekly conference, and this is something that we discuss pretty often within our online courses and within the book. Something that's really necessary and important. We think that all married couples should be having a weekly conference, yeah, at least once a week, and you need to plan out your life, plan out your week, plan out the week ahead, even current week ahead, and then also take some time to reflect on the past week and say, did we accomplish everything that we set out to accomplish, right? And so it was time for Levy Conference, and it was one of those nights though where you're in between shifts. So
Oh.
yeah, so Maddie's a nurse. And I wrote this down because I thought we had this argument, I thought it was a good argument, so I wrote it down.
Well,
Is that
that's good
yeah,
because usually right in between shifts, I am not good at arguing
of course,
nicely.
and you weren't, and so that's what made it a
Oh.
good argument, like a good story, a good story to reflect on. Yeah, because it didn't go very well, and so I wrote it down because I was like, this would make good content. Because even though it was difficult, like we did come to a good conclusion. And so, yeah, Maddie is a nurse. She works 12-hour shifts, so you could imagine that 6:30 to 7 or whatever in the morning, and she'll usually do 3 in a row, so 3 12s in a row, and then she's done. And it's tiring during that time, and of course, you get home, all you wanna do is just zone out and just relax for, like, an hour or 2 maybe max, and then just pass out. But we hadn't done our Lovey conference, and it was very important that we get to that weekly
It'll
conference.
ruin our week if we don't
Yeah,
do it.
because our week is gonna be screwed up because nothing's gonna be planned correctly, and things are gonna fall through the cracks, and we're gonna have miscommunication, there's gonna be issues, so we can't do it. We had to have conference that night, and so I was sitting at my computer, I pulled up my calendar, and I'm trying to discuss it with you, and you had your, paper calendar, and we're talking about it, and I wrote down some of the things that we had issues about. Basically, I said, "Okay, uh, I'm we're starting the conference, and you're in your mind, you're thinking, let's just get through this quickly. I don't have the mental capacity for this right now.
Of
I
course.
just want to get through this as quickly as possible, and I just want to do the bare minimum of like who's doing what, how is this week going, and then let's just be done with it." Whereas in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we need to discuss this issue with the boats, the raft versus the boat, and you're already taking you back, and you're like, oh yeah, okay,
I already don't want it.
right. I'm already upset about this. Yeah, is in your mind. We're discussing. So I had to say, hey, we got to talk about this because what we decide on the boats versus the rafts is going to determine how this week is going to play out. Because I got to take a trip to Bass Pro and go get a boat, and I got to work that out, and then we might be able to plan for this next weekend to be able to do something together out on the lake, if we have the time, and if we've scheduled this all correctly, and if I've got the boat, then we should be able to do this. And your response was you were just rolling your eyes, just and just being short with me, like, can we, and I'm telling you, what are you doing? We need to talk about this. Like, this is what we have to talk about because this is going to determine how the rest of the week is going. And you're like, okay, okay. And then we just kept going, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And there was arguing and frustration and eyes rolling and you being short with me. And even, just being like, can you just hurry? Like, why is this taking so long? And that frustrates me because, of course, anytime that you and I are talking, I always tell you, talk to me like you like me. Talk to me like you're not frustrated with me, like you don't resent me, like you enjoy my company, not like I'm a burden or a frustration or a hindrance to you. And so whenever you're talking to me like that, I don't like it. And so that's what I told you. And then that got you into defensive mode. And I wrote this down. I remember this. That got you into defensive mode, and you got angry, and you did that thing where you started looking at me like you don't like you. Not only do you not like me,
I want to fight you.
you start looking at me like you want to fucking choke me out. Yeah, just that, that kind of thing.
My normal face.
Okay, maybe it was worse than your normal RBF, but it was bad. You started looking at me with disdain, and I told you this with my own words. Yeah, I said, you're looking at me with disdain right now. I'm just trying to schedule it. What is happening? Why is this happening? Why are you looking at me like you don't like me, like you hate me, like you want to fight me? I'm just trying to schedule the week. And you just had to take a deep breath, and you're like, I don't know. I was like, do you need a break? And you said yes. And so we took a break. And so that's a pro tip right there. Obviously, things weren't going well. It's getting defensive back and forth. You're getting angry with me. And sometimes when that happens, taking a break is a damn good idea.
Yeah, if communications are getting worse,
Yeah, right.
you might just need to stop and take a minute.
Take a break. Yeah. And
Reset.
And
Because continuing to try to push it is not gonna help.
And that was exactly what we determined after you came back. You said, look, if you just keep pushing it when we're not doing well with this argument, it's just going to make it worse. Because you're already not liking the conversation. You're already uncomfortable with how long it's taking. And then you're getting short with me and being frustrated with me because I'm in no hurry.
You're never in a hurry.
I'm in no hurry. I want to thoroughly discuss the whole plan and the whole process and the whole week and all of it. And it's frustrating you. And then your frustrations are frustrating me. And I'm like, why are you acting like I just want to talk about the conference, and it didn't go well. And so I said, okay, we need to take a break, and so that break really helped. And then that started to, I think that really quickly, if I remember correctly, and this is usually what happens, it very quickly ended all of the anger and frustration. When we came back, the next time that we came back to discuss it, I mean, it was no issues, no anger whatsoever. And what we determined was, look, this is the problem that we're having. You are not doing a good job of communicating your expectations before we have this conversation. And
Right.
and perhaps I didn't either.
Well, and I needed to tell you, okay, if we're gonna do our levy conference tonight, it just needs to be bare minimum.
Right.
I don't want this to take more than 20 minutes because I only have an hour total.
You wanted it to be 5, to be clear. But go on.
Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
this is what happens when a person that's always in a hurry marries a person that's never in a hurry.
True. Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 5 is great, but
Mm-hmm.
I would have settled at 20.
Mhm.
But you want to take an hour.
Right. Yeah, or more. Yeah, I don't know. We had
I wanted
there
to
was
take all of the free time I had that evening.
I didn't want to, but I was comfortable with the fact that if it goes that long, it goes that long because we had
Oh,
important things to
uh-huh,
discuss. Yeah.
uh-huh. Okay, so we basically figured out that I need to communicate with you up front. Like, this needs to be bare minimum. We can do the rest later.
Hmm.
Let's just prioritize the things we have to do when we have to do them
Right.
and who's doing it.
Yeah. And because if I had known at the start of that conversation,
Because at least doing that is better than not doing any of our weekly conference.
yes, yes. If I had known that information, then, I would have been able to appropriately tackle that conversation. And I wouldn't have started out with, okay, so I did some research on boats and a lot of yada yada yada. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have started it that way.
Right.
I either would have told you, no, that's not enough time. We'll have to do it another time. And because I want to thoroughly get into this, we're not going to do this today then. And then there would have been no argument. I would have either told you that, or number two, I would have said, okay, we'll just do a real quick thing for now, but I do have some important things we want to talk about. Maybe we can talk about that tomorrow.
But then we could have scheduled it.
Yes.
Like, let's schedule when we're going to finish our
Yes.
conference.
Yeah. And that's the thing, just proper planning, proper communication really helps to alleviate a lot of stress and a lot of potential arguments that can come up. I mean, first of all, just doing a weekly conference, just that alone, just eliminates so many potential stressors and issues that can come up because you know what you're doing, I know what I'm doing, we both know what we're doing together, and there's no longer any miscommunication. Oh, who's picking up the kids from softball, who's doing this, and when were we going to your mom's house? Like it's all clear, and I've got it in my calendar, you've got it in yours. Everybody knows what they're doing, everybody knows what's expected of us.
Yeah.
And especially if you go even further and really get into the detailed stuff, like, okay, and on Saturday I'm getting the groceries, and then, oh, okay, what did you want me to put on that grocery list? What are we making for dinner on Monday and Tuesday? Okay, if you get really detailed and really plan ahead, then there's never any issues.
Saves you a lot of time.
Yeah, with the typical type of stuff that comes up when you don't plan.
And then I was also going to say, like, obviously scheduling your conference at a time where both of you like don't have time constraints, don't have distractions is obviously ideal.
It's ideal.
It's just that particular week, like my work schedule was weird.
Right.
Or our schedule with the kids was weird. So
Right.
we just had to find a time to make it work.
Mhm.
But it will reduce a lot of conflict in there if we can just schedule it at a time where we're both available and completely devoted to just getting the conference done.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of things that we can take just from this small little story about, I mean, this, for instance, is a good example of how we eliminate a problem before it becomes like a major issue. Not only in just the planning, that's always great, but then also in the way that we paused. And so before it got worse and before it's getting into, I don't know, name calling or, shouting and it getting to be too crazy, we just took a break. And then we came back and it was chill.
Yeah.
I mean,
Basically, anytime you can detect that the conversation's deteriorating for it doesn't matter what reason.
when it's not beneficial anymore.
You're starting to
It's
bicker.
only spiraling.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to get better.
No, it's not going to get better if you just keep going and try to like power through to the end.
Mhm.
That will not work.
No,
So
you're going to power through to the end of a vicious spiral that's
You're
going to
right.
end poorly.
in an argument or a fight or something,
Mhm.
and then you're going to have to talk about that at length. So
Right.
really, it's more efficient if you stop
Mhm.
before it gets bad.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, that's true because that's another thing that you hate. You hate it when we have an argument about, hey, this conversation didn't go well, and then now we still have to finish this first damn conversation
But now we have to have a
But now
second
we-
conversation to resolve
to resolve the fact that we had a fight.
why the first conversation didn't go.
Exactly. Yeah. And then and the whole time you're thinking, I just want to fucking play my game and then go to bed.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Which
so
is what I want to say, but that would
right.
be the end of the spiral.
Right. Yeah. 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 So you hold back and say, let's take a break. Yes.
And just in the spirit of efficiency. Just stop before it gets
Yes.
worse and worse and worse.
Right, right. So there's a lot to be learned from just taking a break. There's a lot that can be learned from proper communication. So when we decide, ahead of time that we've had arguments about the timing of this conference before.
Yes.
So
We've changed when it is
Mhm.
many times because
Yes.
we're like, okay, that didn't work because of
Mhm.
this. Now
Mhm.
let's try Sunday afternoon.
Right. So we need to have proper communication about the expectations of where this conversation's going to go.
Yeah.
How much time do you have? Are we free to? I want to talk about this, this, and this. You good to talk about all this? That again can, and that is an idea. Obviously, taking a break, that can happen at any time that you're having an issue. And even this, proper communication about what expectations you have,
Mhm.
that can solve so many conflicts, not only in just in prefacing like an important conversation, but also in just proper communication of your expectations of just your daily life. I need help with this. Can you help me with the kids in the morning, or this and that? I mean, that's a good example is just even today, for instance. Normally you take the kids to school in the morning and I will
Pick them up.
pick them up, but late last night you're not, you're kind of miserable because you hurt your foot in jujitsu and you're worried you're not going to get good sleep and you're just dreading it. And I could see that you're, putting your lunches together. And I'm like, can I help you with lunch? I could see that you are having trouble and that you're worried about not getting enough sleep. And so I said, can I just take the kids for you? You know, um, and I didn't just simply do that to avoid some kind of conflict, but I'm doing that to avoid stress.
Right.
Just anything that we can do to avoid stress, because anytime that your stress is heightened, it tends to cause more conflict. For instance, this whole conversation that went poorly, if you were relaxed, not stressed, had all the time in the world,
If it were my day off, it probably wouldn't have
it
been a
wouldn't
problem at
nothing
all.
would have happened.
Right.
But it was at a time where you were, at least somewhat stressed and trying to relieve stress by this is your time of relaxing. And then even for instance today, if you were stressed because you stayed up late and you had to, do all that stuff on your own, taking care of the kids' lunches and yada yada, and then you had to wake up early this morning and you didn't get enough sleep, and then it's time for us to film, like there would have been added stress, and the likelihood of us kind of bickering here and there is going to be higher. And so anything that you can do just to lower each other's stress levels, these are all really good important tips on how to either avoid or deal with conflict. The other thing that we talk about a lot, and we're not going to get into today, but in our online courses and in the book, is just active listening. And so, that's how you listen and then repeat the thing to the other person. And then you just kind of go through this process. And that's another big help. But we're not going to get into that today. But I think that the few things that we discussed already will be beneficial to the audience. So anything you want to add? Thank you for being with us today, folks. Have a good one.